I'm out tonight looking for barn owls and tawny owls. Now, I live in Muntjac, which is just inside Hertfordshire. It's also near to the Bedfordshire border. Now, both of these areas are quite good for finding owls of the main three species that we have here in the UK: barn owl, tawny owl and little owl. Now, little owl is a bit more difficult to find in the car. We're out driving tonight down the lanes and hoping to see perched tawny owl and barn owl at the side of the road, perhaps on signposts or fence posts, and perhaps we'll get a chance to see some in flight also. If we don't get to it, it would also be great just to hear them calling. And at this time of year, from August onwards, which is when the autumn starts for the birds and wildlife, the owls will be calling to attract a mate. It'd be much rarer to hear a barn owl calling, but we're going to try our best anyway. So let's see what we find. I'm currently just parked along the Nettledon Road, where I'm looking for both tawny owl and barn owl, which I've seen here in the past on and off. I'm just inside Hertfordshire now, and a little bit later we'll head to the Whipsnade area, which is just inside Bedfordshire, and see if we have any luck there, where I've also seen both species. So let's see how we get on. Windows down, keep those eyes and ears open, and let's see how it goes. Now, as you can see, I've got my lights on full beam, so you need to be aware of other drivers, but it's your best chance of finding either of the owls at this time of night. Look for the headlights reflecting off of the plumage of either owl. Barn owls typically looking very white when the headlights hit them, and tawny owls generally looking a bit more dull. But don't think that if you see a bright white owl in your headlamps that it's definitely a barn owl, because the front of a tawny owl can look quite white. It's quite a lot paler than the brown of the plumage on the back of the bird and its flight feathers. So it's worth a double check if you do see an owl that's white. And of course the tawny owl is quite a bit more common than the barn owl, so don't just assume. It's worth having a double check. Either way, it's great to see an owl, whatever species, so let's see how we do. I've just pulled over here as I've already found a tawny owl sat on one of these fence posts. Now, it took flight as I pulled over to the side of the road, but hopefully it sat on one of the fence posts a bit further along, so maybe we'll go back down the road, turn around, come up and see if we have any better luck. There we go, we've returned to the same spot, and here is a tawny owl just sat on this post here. Doesn't seem too bothered by the car. Looking around, listening there for any sounds of voles or anything else that could be a food source. Now, this looks quite a large bird. This is probably a female, and this is of the regular coloration. There's also a more rusty version of the tawny owl. It's the same species, it's just a variation in the colouring. Seems to be watching that car continue along the road over there. Now watching those moths over there. I think that's a little bit of a small snack for a tawny owl, whereas if that was a little owl, you'd see that as a sizable meal. Doesn't seem to be too interested in what we're up to. Doesn't seem bothered that we're here, that the car headlamps are there, that the indicators are on, all the cars running. Since seeing us arrive, it hasn't looked back since. beautiful. Now we can see from that perseverance is important. Even though that tawny owl took flight when we pulled up at first, it soon returned to the same spot. That was in a matter of minutes. Now, one of the easiest ways to find a tawny owl or a barn owl is to look for exposed perches, whether that's a bare tree branch or a fence post or a signpost at the side of the road. Now, they'll often use these spots for hunting. So whilst it's at an elevated position, they can see all around down into the grass, and they'll also listen using that huge facial disc which diverts all of the sounds towards their face. And from there they can pinpoint the position of prey, wait till they see it, and then go in for the kill. So let's see what else we can find. We'll carry on along the lanes. Perhaps we'll go to one of my spots where I've recently found barn owl. There's a small chance we could see one. If not, who knows what else we'll find. Let's go and find out. Now I've just pulled over in this lay-by, as historically this spot has been particularly good for finding little owl. I'm yet to actually see one here, but I've heard them very often coming from the dead trees at the top of the hill and the farmhouses which also have barns. Now this particular type of habitat is particularly good for finding little owl. Here we've got an arable field. It's recently been cut. That does also expose the soil beneath, which means that earthworms are easier to find. Now earthworms, along with moths, which there are plenty of here, as I've seen flying around my headlamps here, are the major food sources of the little owl. I think we'd be very lucky if we see any tonight, but there's a possibility of hearing them, so we might as well try our luck. Now, I haven't heard any little owls yet, but I have heard is what sounds like a family of foxes. It sounds like there might be some fox cubs around here. I don't know if you can hear them in the distance. I could hear the snarling of the youngsters, and I could hear the eerie screaming bark of the adults. Now another creature that sounds a bit like a fox is a Muntjac Deer, and they're also particularly common in this area, but no sign of them tonight so far. Okay, so no sign of the little owls tonight, but as I've just got in the car just now, there was a brown hare wandering around the car, having a little sniff around here, but as soon as I opened the door to show you guys, it scuffled off into the bushes and into the field that's just beside us. So let's get on our way now, and we'll see if we can find any barn owls. This will be slightly more tricky, but I'll try my best for you guys. If you can see that, but there's a brown hare. So we're just driving along the narrow lanes where I have seen barn owl recently. It's never guaranteed, even in a spot where you've seen them regularly, so the chances are pretty slim, but we might as well try our luck. Either way, I can never get over the excitement of not knowing what you might see when driving along these lanes, whether it's mammals or owls or anything else for that matter. So let's see what we can find. Now I'm at the spot where I last saw barn owl here. Doesn't seem to be anywhere around, and I've been waiting for some time. But here's a good example of the kind of tree that you might find a tawny owl or barn owl perched in. This is an oak tree here. If you see, it's got quite exposed wide branches, and these are the kind of spots where they might sit and search for prey, as they have a good vantage point down into the long grasses and cereal fields below. So sorry I couldn't show you a barn owl here tonight. We'll carry on our drive, and if we don't find barn owl tonight, we'll try again another night and keep watching, and we will try our best to show you some. Now we've just moved about 50 yards from the spot where I was talking to you about the barn owls, and I've just seen a tawny owl take flight from this footpath sign at the side of the road. So there's clearly owls out and about tonight. The conditions aren't optimum. It's quite cloudy. They do prefer the moon to be visible in the sky, as this illuminates the ground and makes it easier for them to find prey. But we'll keep going and see what else we can find. Now just heading back to the Markyate area now, I've just found these two red-legged partridges sat at the side of the road, which is quite a peculiar sight. they haven't taken flight. I'm just going to get out the car and check that they're okay, and also just to make sure they don't get run over, really, because they seem to be not bothered by the car approaching them. So let's get out and see if they're alright. I'm out of the car and this one hasn't flown yet. It'll probably make me jump if it does. I'm not sure if it thinks I can't see it. If it sits still, maybe it thinks that predators might not be able to see it. This might work if it's sat in the foliage or in the grass, but in the middle of the road I can see it quite obviously, as you can see. Let's just check it's okay. Go on then. Now these seem to be youngsters. It hasn't quite got its adult plumage yet. You can tell by the plumage on the face. Let's just check that it's all alright. Go on then. Go on then. Keep going. Go on. There he goes, that's much better. So I think the one over there is probably fine. Also, I think they're just young birds, and they've probably been dazzled by headlights, such as mine, and they haven't quite learnt yet to be fearful of vehicles. We'll drive past the other bird, make sure it's okay, and we'll head on our way. Here's the other bird. Let's just check this one's alright. Hey little one, you can't sit there. You can't sit there, you'll get run over. It's a beautiful bird. They're not native to the UK, they're introduced for hunting and food. Our native partridge is the grey partridge, which is a little bit more subdued in colour, but still a beautiful bird. Let's check that this one's alright and it can get on its way. This one's closer to adult plumage. Yeah, this one seems fine. We'll leave it alone, let it get on with its evening, and we'll get back on in the car. Now, hopefully you can hear that. That's the call of the female tawny owl. The call is a kiwick, kiwick. And the male's call is the hooting call that we'd normally associate with the tawny owl. The to-wit to-woo call that we all know of and learn when we're a child, that's actually when a male and female are communicating with each other. The male will make the hooting sound and the female will respond with the kiwick. Now if you can hear both birds at the same time, that would be a pair that are holding territory and will look to hold that territory until they breed in the spring. So let's move on and see if we can see any more owls. We'll try some of the lanes that I found closer to home more recently, where there's been a fair few tawny owls at this time of night. It's not guaranteed, but we'll give it a go. So this is Wood End Lane. This is somewhere where more recently I've explored, and on one evening found 3 tawny owls just along this short stretch. So we're going to continue down the lane and see if we have any luck here. Now I can see ahead of us here there's an owl sat on an exposed branch at the side of the road, so we're going to very carefully get a little bit closer and see if I can show you what type of owl this is. From this distance it looks like a tawny owl, but we'll get a little bit closer and we'll make sure and see if we can get some footage. Unfortunately, this bird wasn't so confident in the presence of cars, and pretty much as soon as I pulled off it took flight. But this was where it was sat on these dead branches here. It seemed to be looking across this field on the right hand side for any rodent prey that it might find. In this kind of habitat they're most likely to find field voles and mice. Field voles will be the major food source of the barn owl. Now, tawny owls that would most regularly hunt in woodland areas, they're likely to find bank voles and mice, as well as shrews and pretty much any small rodent that it can catch. But because of the habitat that barn owl lives in, the field vole is by far the most common food source. So, we didn't have any luck with barn owls in the Hertfordshire area that we've just visited. There were plenty of signs of tawny owls. It was great to see a couple, if not great views, apart from the first one at the side of the road there. On the way back since, I've heard a couple more female tawny owls calling, one at Bryden's camp and one near Gadsden Row, and also seen a rodent run across the road. It was probably either a bank vole or one of the mouse species, probably wood mouse, and a few more brown hares running around in the fields that had been cut recently, the arable fields that we passed earlier on. So we're about to head on into the edge of Bedfordshire now. We're heading along the lanes that head towards Whipsnade. Now, I've seen barn owl here in the past, but that was during a harsh winter. But tawny owl is something I see fairly regularly here. So we'll carry on and we'll see how we get on. No more luck tonight, I'm afraid. No sign of any tawny owls, let alone barn owls on the lanes heading to and from Whipsnade. It doesn't mean they're not there, but they're just not playing ball tonight. That's the thing with nature, I'm afraid. It's hit and miss, and there are no rules. One thing we can say is that if you learn the habits of not just the species, but individual birds, say you see a tawny owl in the same spot a couple of times, likelihood is it always uses that spot to hunt, and if you return and wait, I'm sure that you'd find the same bird again. So for now, that's it. We had a good night anyway. We saw 3 tawny owls. I heard 3 others. We saved some partridges from getting run over in the night, and we'll be back again next time. I'll make some more videos and hopefully be able to show you guys some more owls in the evening. And I'll also be out finding other species of animal, such as mammals, reptiles, amphibians, birds, wildflowers, whatever it is you guys are into. I'll try and find it and try and get some footage, even if it is just on my iPhone. We came out at 10 to 12 and it's now 2:15 in the morning, so it's time I get some sleep. So until next time, have a good evening, take care, bye bye.